I was born March 3rd, 1994. My mother delivered me alone in San Antonio, Texas. You weren't there. I had my first birthday and I blew out my second birthday candles and you still weren't there. I took my first walk and fell, but you weren't there to pick me up. The bars that separated us became the harsh reality of you and me never really bonding. I was 4 when you came home, and we moved to Chicago. I'm 26 now, and I can count on my hands how many times you told me I love you. Growing up, you were the oldest and had to be the strongest, and crying was for the weak. Growing up, I grew harsh and looking for that empty piece. My hands are skinny and long like you. My skin is tan brown with a willow's peak to match. I even have the same beauty mark on my back just like you. My eyes are free line shaped and my nose has a little button shape at the end, just like you. Yet you see me and you never gave me those hugs and smiles. I stand in a room with you and it feels like I'm standing next to a stranger. But time has passed and I get angry at the bars that kept you from being there. But if the bars were never there, would you ever have been there? I was looking for love so early in my life. It's funny to look back and think I knew what I was doing. I barely was a teenager, and we were barely figuring ourselves out. You were barely figuring out who you were. Best friends in a confusing world. You grew up with privilege, with a loving mother and a hardworking dad. But you worked and didn't have a choice. But when you had a choice, they were always the bad ones. I was drowning, and you didn't know how to save me. Matter of fact, I think you got tired of me. And you got tired of saving me and decided to save yourself. When your mother passed, you didn't cry, you ran away. And I could see it in your eyes that you blinded yourself to feel anything or let anyone in. You began the journey of grief a long time before that. When you went missing because men don't cry and men don't need anyone to be there for them. Because they are men and they will hide their emotions by hiding themselves. There were times when you would scream and I would understand, but then you felt ashamed if I seen you at your weakest and it wasn't supposed to. As if the lion finally let down his mane and was vulnerable for a moment. Even with tears running down your eyes, I see no soul. Because men aren't supposed to be vulnerable. They're supposed to be blind to their emotions. This project became more than just the statistics of men being vulnerable and how the world sees them. It became how little girls grow up without knowing how to handle the world full of men that don't know how to be men in a judgmental world. How men grow up to either be their dads or resent them. How men are supposed to navigate through marriage and relationships with happy wife, happy life. How independence is something they urge for, but that's not in the handbook for a family man. How women are supposed to be nurturing and crying when the sad part of the movie comes on. How pink is for women and blue is for men, but my favorite color is black. How boys are told not to be sissies and women are told to sit correctly. How self-love isn't important because you have to be a man, but know how to love a woman correctly. How self-love is important, but to take care of everyone first and then yourself later as a woman. They say your first love should be the love of your father, but what happens when they aren't? What happens when you're looking for that love in men that traumatized you and tortured your soul? Only to understand that maybe if that man was taught to love himself, he would see the value of love and the true emotions of loving someone else. So maybe if this world would understand and be understanding, maybe little girls would never need to find missing pieces, and little boys would never need to find the way to hide what they feel. Because boys cry too.